Welcome back. Welcome back. Kelsey Brown, how are you?
I'm excellent. Games is over. I
So
know,
much
plenty
fun.
to talk about, but happy to be back in the locker room.
Yes, well, welcome to Locker Room Chat. It is episode 17. We have had a 3-week little hiatus. What's been happening in the 3 weeks? I mean, I came and visited you for a nice
Yes.
little holiday after the SSN finished. What's been happening in your world?
I've just been taking some time off. Obviously had pretty big 6 weeks over in the States and then wrapped all of that up with the finals. And so I've just been taking some time off, soaking up Fremantle doing super well in the AFL and just you never know when your team's going to be at the top. So you've just kind of got to enjoy it while they are and just going on a few little holidays here and there and getting out and about, but mostly resting and gearing up for what is about to be a very exciting signing period.
It is. It's technically the off season for a lot of players. So let's go back to SSN Grand Final because we never got to recap it. We did a full brief on Grand Final day. I mean, you and I were both there. I think it's safe to say everyone was relatively disappointed with the end result, but also not surprised because Thunderbirds had pretty much been a force to be reckoned with right from the start of the season. And they showed that on Grand Final day. Vixens, unfortunately, could not bring it, struggled. We talked about the quicksand in that last episode, saying sometimes the harder you try, the further you sink and the faster you go. And unfortunately, that was the tale for the Vixens. But overall, how was Grand Final day?
Grand Final day was great. Obviously loved being there and sitting side by side with you. It was a very fun experience. There's a couple of things. Obviously, we picked the winner at the start of Locker Room, so good to get that ticked. But I will say a lot of my takes in the Grand Final episode were wrong. I thought, maybe the Thunderbirds are going to be overawed by the experience, but just proves that Kate Heffernan, Almere Vanderberg, and all of the Thunderbirds players who have been there and experienced that before just really knew what it took. I cannot believe that we sat there and we saw records like the record margin in a grand final, record low for the score for the Vixens. And, we didn't know this at the time, but then you look forward to Games and the game that has changed history, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. It probably is reflective of that Vixens Thunderbirds grand final.
I absolutely agree with that. Thunderbirds, exceptional. They are the benchmark. I think everyone's got to look at it and go, wow. Even in the first couple of minutes of the game, some of the superstars were a little bit quiet. Almere was quiet. Even Sterling Humphrey was quiet, but it was Heffernan in the middle that keeps churning things over. Next minute, Hodges comes into play. Then the defenders come into play. Like, just a really solid team performance. And I know they have stellar players, but credit to Tanya Obbs and even Kathy Fellows with what they've been able to instill in that group and create for long-term success. It's not just a one-off premiership. It's been sustained for 4 years now, 3 premierships in 4 years. It's unbelievable. So I'm interested to see whether they can retain it because after the grand final, what it meant was every single player was out of contract. It is a heavy signing period that is just about to begin. I do believe that it was meant to open this morning. So stay close to your socials because I reckon some announcements will be starting to play out very, very soon.
Cast your mind back a few years ago. I was rampant on X around the signing period. I love this period of time. I know that as a player, it's a very stressful period. And I will say I am mind blown that we're in exactly the same position again. And I don't often like to compare netball to other sports, but it's just so rare to see the position that we're in at the moment. Yes, does it make it exciting as a fan? You want to know where your players are moving to. But as a player, as a professional athlete, I just think it's so poor that we're in this situation again. And I just wish it could have been resolved in 3 years and not a repeat. I'm very excited for the signing period. I am hearing whispers.
Oh, you got anything to share?
I don't know whether I'll let any out today, but I'm hearing some whispers, as I'm sure everybody is who's keeping up with the netball signing period. But I think there's going to be a fair bit of movement.
You know what? I think it's exciting. I think it's kind of needed. And as much as it's devastating that players are in these positions again, and even coaches are as well, but I do think maybe this is a great time for players to be off with the state of where international netball has gone to in the last 10 days as well. So let's go straight into Commonwealth Games. I did a little bit of a table of all the players that are playing in SSN. I just stuck to the top 6 nations. So Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, England, South Africa, and Uganda. This is pretty amazing, right? 34 players out of those 72 are playing SSN or have played since its inception.
Love it.
34 players out of those 72. And that's talking about your Kimio Poi, Carla Pretorius. They were at Commonwealth Games.
Visca.
Yep, they've played in our league before. So whether they're currently playing or have played, 34 out of 72. That is why SSN is considered the world's best league, because the world's best in those top 6 nations are playing all here. That is what we've always got to remember. How lucky are we to witness that week in, week out? But let's go to Com Games. The rounds go through. We had 2 pools, the top 4, they did the crossover, and this is where it really started to get interesting. For you, is it a fail for Australia? Where do you see it? I mean, you're a former diamond, so am I. Deep down, we always want our sisters in arms to exceed, but where is it?
Well, I think this is a tough one. And I'm going to start by saying you and I were texting each other throughout the finals, and I just kept saying, I've got so much to say, which is why we jumped into the locker room. But for me, I think first and foremost, I'm a diamond. One of my proudest moments was stepping out there in the green and gold. And I think you would say exactly the same thing. One of the things that I hang my hat on in my netball career. However, I think this is brilliant for world netball. I have been so excited across these last couple of days around the matchups, that they are exciting, that the games you're not sure where they're going to go. Lining up to sitting on my couch watching Australia versus Jamaica, I was like, honestly, I've got no idea, which is what it should be about. I just think this is brilliant for world netball. It shows the development across the nations. It shows South Africa's growth from the time that Norma Plummer was involved. Now they've got Elmarie Vandenberg and the likes of Visser and Pretorius and all of those players who have been in the SSN. I just think these results, as much as it is very disappointing for Australian fans and the Diamonds, no doubt they are feeling sad, brilliant for world netball. I love this. So I would say, based on past patterns, based on the expectations we have of the Diamonds, yeah, maybe is it a fail? Yes, based on past. But is this the new era? Is this now where we're heading? And maybe in 10 years' time, we look back at this and we say, no, that wasn't a fail for the Diamonds. Of course it wasn't. It's the start of new, which I'm excited about.
Maybe this is what netball needed, because I felt like it was so predictable in what was going to happen. Yes, the top 4 was still the same though. Like the top 4 was still the same, right? But I think especially South Africa edging that a little bit closer. I agree. This is how it should be. It should be that unknown that it takes your absolute best, especially in the pressure moments, to be able to wear that gold medal around your neck because you know that you have earned it. And it hasn't just been like, oh, we actually didn't play our best today, but we still got the result done. Disappointing, I think, for those players. But I agree. I think this is maybe the rebirth of international netball that we needed to at least keep netball continuing to push forward, especially in the female sporting space.
Well, when you really boil down sport, and this is not just netball, it's any sport, you really want to be heading into contests in any league, anywhere, going, oh, this game's so exciting. Can't wait to tune in. Can't wait to see the best players in the world playing. Who's going to win this battle? And I think at world tournaments for netball recently, it just hasn't been like that. Kudos to the Diamonds, though. I have to say that. They have worked themselves into being that dominant. I'm not taking away what they've done over the past however many years. But for me, I just think this makes all of the tournaments more exciting. How much are we going to be talking about the World Cup coming up? How much are we going to be talking about who's in this team, who's not in this team? The revelations of Brie Grierson coming into Jamaica. I just think how much more we are going to be talking about individual players from different nations and not just the Diamonds, not just the Silver Ferns, I think really makes the storylines exciting for netball moving forward. And that is what sport is about. Sport is about excitement. It's about entertainment. It's about pride. And I know that all of the nations have that, but I just thought we saw a really, really exciting tournament.
Another thing I want to talk about the tournament is coaches. Now, New Zealand, Bryony Akel, Australian coach. Jamaica, Rob Wright, an Australian coach. And then Australia, obviously, Nicole Richardson and Stacey Murievich. Teams that are wearing medals all have Australian influence through coaches. That is something we have to be proud of. I mean, there is only 2 positions for our coaches at the Diamonds. but others have had to go and explore other opportunities. And you can see our incredible talent within the coaching realms being showcased on the world stage. And that is probably why these nations, you think of New Zealand, they finished fourth, no medal at the Netball World Cup in 2023. So 3 years on, wow, the turnaround that they've been able to do. So I think you've got to look at that. One question I did want to pose to you about the coaches though, and I know this from my own coaching, is like as players, the more you practice a habit, the more you practice the privilege of being under pressure, how you
When
handle
you
situations.
when you come back from preseason and your feet don't work because you haven't been doing footwork and all of a sudden you have to learn how to dodge again, it does. It goes away when you
It
don't.
does. So the more you practice things, the better you get at it, right? And watching from afar, and I look at more of that administration side now as well. Someone like a Stacey Marinkovic, like she doesn't coach through SSN. Like a lot of our SSN coaches would be well more equipped than her on a weekly basis to handle that pressure because they constantly have to practice it. They're constantly put through the ringer every single week, having to find new ways to win games, to find different rotations. I just kind of like looked at her and I was like, I feel like you need to be out there practicing your craft because at times, it's like, oh, she's making those changes. And so she should be able to make those changes and it shouldn't be questioned whether it's going to unsettle anything. These are the 12 best athletes that we have for Australia. They should be able to rotate every 6 minutes. If that's what we need because they're not doing their job, pull the trigger, but that's a risk. But if you've practiced that risk, it doesn't feel that stressful. So thoughts on maybe coaches being able to coach a bit more?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting point. And when you look at the head coaches across the Commonwealth Games, Nolene's not in a professional environment week in, week out. But I do think it really raises the question of that's so interesting. We're expecting our players to be well versed in pressure situations and train week in, week out. And I think some of these players haven't had time off from December last year leading into this. The time off that they've had has been next to none because they've gone from preseason into SSN into Com Games. So they've had practice after practice after practice. And then you're asking a coach who hasn't coached in pressure environments to go into the highest pressure tournament that we see
And
every
deliver and make no errors.
I think it is a really interesting point. And that's not just Stacey Marinkovic. That's, Nolene Tarua, Stembridge. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting point. I don't know what the answer is to get them into those environments. And obviously, a lot of their assistant coaches are in those environments. Joe Harton, Bryony Akel, Nicole Richardson. But the head coaches aren't coaching week in, week out. It's really, really interesting.
I mean, I can understand if they're coaching at the Vixens, we're all going to have Vixens, but there's a selection committee, there's a selection panel. So if we trust the selection panel, then, wouldn't it be good for these coaches to be actually immersed in this situation of World Netball week in, week out? Maybe that's something we need to consider. Speaking of coaches, though, I mean, I just want to talk about New Zealand. In Knowles, we trust, they
We
say,
do.
and they have had a tumultuous 18 months.
18.
New
Yep.
Zealand netball, and they're potentially going down the path of even more heartache with their league disbanding. Like it may not go ahead. There's no certain future for some of these New Zealand players. When you look at it and you look at them winning, what do you think it took from Nolene and this group to be able to get this done? Because you've been in amongst her. Like, what does she bring to be able to have such a massive turnaround with this group of players that 1 minute she's been stood down and the next minute she's producing a gold medal winning game?
Yeah, well, I don't know the ins and outs of what happened in that New Zealand camp, so I will preface this by saying that. But I think the one thing I personally loved about Nolene was how much she cared about me. Now, did that make her bloody hard on me? Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I thought I was doing well and she'd give me a reminder that I'm only 1/18th of the way through my journey and not to get too ahead of myself. So she's really good at, I think, and I've mentioned this to you before, finding that balance of like pushing someone to the point of like, oh my God, I can't go anymore. And then nurturing them and caring about them. And like one thing about Knowles is she's got a family of her own. She understands how important the family piece is. She would be explaining to those girls that they are a family for this tournament, the ones that have been chosen, they are in this together. And you hear in a lot of the interviews, all of the players were saying she never wavered on her belief in us. And I know that's cliche to say, but when you feel like the coach believes in you, you start to believe in yourself. It is really changing inside of you when someone does have that much belief in you. So I think that's the first thing. I think she would have cared a lot about these girls as people and brought all of their family and their friends, everyone along for the ride as well. We're all a part of this. But I also just think the masterstroke of Miller Buchanan in that wing defense position, that is something that Knowles does that not a lot of people are willing to risk. So never played there before. I think Miller was reflecting on it. She said, I've played 7 games of wing defense in my career, 8 or 9 years of professional netball. She's a wing attack. But also now I've seen it, I'm like, oh, of course it makes sense. She's dogged. She's ruthless. She can defend. She's a midi that just goes and goes and goes and goes. But the difference for her in that wing defense position is her attacking through court and the pressure that it took off Kelly Jackson and Karen Berger. Her attacking down the court, and then it allowed Kate Heffernan to run those long lines into the pocket, masterstroke. That's what Knowles is about. Obviously, now I've seen it, I'm like, yeah, fully makes sense. But she was the game changer there, and that is her brilliance. I don't care that you've never played there. We're going into a Com Games, and I think this is going to work. You know, the other thing off that Nolene is so smart about, no one knew. This would have been in Knowles' brain for the last however long. When she's picking the team, she's going, I've got this in the back of my head. I'm going to play it out. I'm going to pick this team. Everyone who saw that team picked was like, oh my God, there's so much, like, who's going to play where and what's going to. No one thought that. I can tell you that this is happening, but part of Knowles' genius is not letting the world know that.
Well done, Nolene. Exceptional stuff. Let's talk about Jamaica. Let's give them a little bit of a moment in the sun. Pardon the pun, the Sunshine Girls. But was that the blueprint to beating this outstanding defense lineup? Because they did not look like they were even in contention for contests. I don't know whether the day before took a lot of that emotion and energy and intensity out of it for Shamira Sterling-Humphrey and Wilson for Jamaica and even Jodie-Ann Ward, but New Zealand made them just look second rate in a way. And I would never say that for that exceptional defensive lineup. Like, I've never seen that type of performance done consistently over 4 quarters from any other attacking line. I haven't seen that in SSN. Like, when the Vixens won against the Thunderbirds last year, you saw it for moments, but you didn't see it consistently for 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm probably going to disagree with you on this one. I don't think that Jamaica were anywhere near their best. I think they were spent. And I speak about Crystal Plummer in the middle. I think she looked knackered, and I thought at times they could have brought Dixon Rochester on just for a little pinch hit. She looked exhausted. And when you take the center out of that defensive combination and the structure, then it really does expose everyone else. I'm not saying that Crystal Plummer is why Shamira is as excellent as she is, but it does really change everything. So I thought Jamaica looked exhausted. I thought Kate Heffernan really took advantage of the fact that they were exhausted, and I just think they spent a lot of their energy. So I would love to see that New Zealand team, like, I thought they played brilliantly on the day, but I would love to see that New Zealand team up against a Jamaica from the day before. I just didn't think that they were going to be able to back it up, and they didn't. Kudos to Georgia Heffernan, though. I played with Georgia Heffernan, I don't know, a couple of years ago when I went over and did this random little tournament in New Zealand. I think she's an absolute jet. Her development over that period of time, brilliant. She's become so reliable. But I think the thing that I liked about Georgia Heffernan in that grand final gold medal match, she's not scared of Shamira. She doesn't have years of trauma. I feel like I could hop on court right now and have years of trauma of Shamira. She doesn't have that. She hasn't played in the SSN, so she's not going, oh, Shamira's stressful when you come up against the Thunderbirds. She's going, cool, I'm going to feed Grace. And I think that's what happened. So I thought Jamaica looked tired, but I also just thought the lack of fear from the likes of a Georgia Heffernan and the feeds that she was placing in and the masterstroke of Miller, that's what happened. But I do just want to say Jamaica in that semi-final, the development and the growth of them to be able to hold onto the ball, I was sitting there going, they're going to crack, they're going to crumble.
They've worked so hard to put themselves in this position.
Yeah, like I just thought I'm nervous for Jamaica to get to a particular point and then just completely fall off a cliff, which I think that they have done in previous encounters. And I'm sitting there in the fourth quarter going, Australia's going to run over the top here. Australia's going to run over. They're going to put the foot down. I just was like waiting for the moment to drop because we've seen that happen so many times. So I just have to give massive kudos to Jamaica. Their ability to hold on to the ball, their ability to keep the work rate up. That Australian defense, even again from my couch, looks terrifying. Hard, yakka, one-on-one, bodied up, physical defense. And they just wore it. They just wore it. Bree Grierson sat on the body. They took the pace out of the game. They were so controlled. So I just think that game in itself is going to change how Jamaica feels about themselves and how they're able to grind out contests, because I think the only thing that has been separating them in Australia is Australia's ability to grind out a whole 60-minute performance, and Jamaica proved that in the semi-final that they can do it.
Ditto, ditto.
Can I also just say, and this is another thing that I wanted to mention. I have loved seeing the discourse online around the Diamonds and losing that semi-final. Now, I think it is absolutely okay for Australian fans, you and I in there as well, to be disappointed that we didn't make the gold medal game. I think I would be lying if I said I didn't think that we were going to probably walk away with a gold medal. That's an expectation that you have, right? Having been in that losing World Cup in 2019 in Liverpool, I have just loved to see the progression we have made as a netball fraternity around the negativity that comes with the Diamonds losing. I remember standing on that podium, bawling my eyes out, feeling like I'd let down the entire nation because I was getting tagged in a heap of things, being like, you suck and you are the reason we lost this World Cup, right? I just think our growth as a netball fan base to go, they went out there, they tried their best. Yes, they didn't win. They've got a bronze. They're standing on that podium. They're proud of their bronze medals. I just think our progression from where we were back in the World Cup in 2019, this Diamonds team is not a disappointment. They're not the worst people in the world. They didn't go out there to lose. And I just think we have managed to learn how to lose gracefully and that it is okay for the Diamonds to lose, because I feel like there was a period of time where it wasn't okay for the Diamonds to lose. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, there are still some people, and there's some disgusting comments where it's like, come on, guys, like rein yourself in and how dare you? Like you said, they have gone and done their job. Just like you go to work today and you do your job. Sometimes you have a good day and sometimes you have an off day. It is no different. It's just sport. We feel so connected and emotional to it that we ride the highs and we ride the lows and we feel the pain and we feel the pressure. And so like as fans, you want to kind of live through that immersion, through those players. And so that's why it's sometimes hard. But I agree. I think be disappointed, absolutely. But remember, sport, it can be this much part of your life. And when you put it into perspective, I think one thing that's been amazing about the Commonwealth Games compared to, say, like a solo sport World Cup, you are exposed to some incredible role models and amazing people as athletes. I think of that swimmer who said, you know, my goal in the pool was to make the final, but my goal outside is to find a cure for brain cancer because that is what I'm managing and that is what I'm handling. And is just like, I just am so lucky to be here. It is a game. It is heartbreaking to lose, but in the scheme of life, it's about this big.
Yeah.
So just perspective on that. You can be disappointed, but you also can be kind. You do not need to be horrible.
I just think people learning that no one's going out there to lose. Everyone wants to go out and win. We wanted to win back in 2019. Every Diamonds team that's ever lost wants to win. And you do feel the weight of the nation on your shoulders because there's an expectation there. I have loved some of the rhetoric that is going around social media, that it is not all doom and gloom. Still so proud of these Diamonds, still so proud of every bit of hard work. Let's also remember what these girls have had to do to their bodies to even have a Commonwealth Games bronze medal.
Yeah.
I don't have one. Like, I've bloody love one. I don't have one. But I just wanted to say that I feel like we have progressed so much. It's what comes with being an elite athlete. I understand that, and being disappointed in your team losing. But yeah, I was just very proud to see that we've maybe made some steps forward to being a little bit kinder, a little bit more caring for our own.
There was one other thing I did want to talk about, which was England, which I'm like, have they had the biggest fall from grace because they were silver at a World Cup? But to be honest, I don't know that I really care to spend much time on it. I feel like that's just where I'm going to leave it. We've talked about the Diamonds. We've talked about New Zealand. We've talked about Jamaica. I mean, England, not good.
Yeah,
Not
I
good at
think
all.
one thing I would reflect on with England is I think bringing in another goaler for a midi was the start of the end. What the fuck, mind you?
Yeah.
Because it did really show, like, he really was struggling with how to fit all of these pieces in. I thought the depth of the squad wasn't there, and I just think, getting a new coach 5 seconds out from starting a tournament is going to be hard. Very proud of one of my really great friends, Fran Williams, though. Her ability to lead that team when it would have been difficult behind the scenes. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to her, but always very proud of what she puts out. And just how she holds herself and the grace that she has when, it has been a fall from grace for England and she's had to lead that team. So that's what I have to.
I just think England are very lucky that there were bigger stories above theirs, because otherwise I feel like a lot of the attention and light might have been shed on them. But that wraps up some Games chat. Congratulations to all of them that went. I hope all the players are enjoying a little bit of holiday time in Europe, in some sunshine, just relaxing. I tell you what, though, I cannot wait for Constellation Cup. Bring on October. I cannot.
That's what I mean. You know why we're excited about Con Cup? Because teams are just vibing right now.
They're getting it done.
New Zealand, bring it on. And I'm pumped for Con Cup. In other years, no offense, but I've been like, oh, cool.
Let's go into the third and final thing that I want to talk about today is trade period. Contracting. We've seen a couple of coaches announcements being done. Obviously, Dylan Nexip getting the Swifts job. There's a few current coaches that have just re-signed for another year, which is great to see. The clubs have been able to lock in the leadership at the top.
Madison, speaking of coaches, I have heard that some of the teams have gone hard in their coaching stakes. I am excited. Forget about the player announcements. I'm excited for those. Very excited for some of the coaching announcements too.
Right. Just you wait. Just me wait. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, a little tidbit, little teaser. Just want to say, and this wouldn't have been publicized. I'm not going to name teams or whatever, but there's been some shady shit happening too, behind the scenes. When there is no contracts actually being able to be put on tables, I just think there's room for, we want you, people planning their lives around having contracts.
As I said, that is literally as good as writing a signature on a napkin at a restaurant.
No, but the trust that you have to have in people, and you do have trust in people when you can't actually put pen to paper. You do trust that someone's telling you the truth. That just might be that they're telling 3 other people the same truth. And we've seen it a number of times across this sort of period. Yeah, you've got a contract. Yeah, we're going to build the team around you. Yeah. Crazy scenes. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Well, let's talk about, there was a little bit of an idea floating around at the end of the grand final, and I do know that Bianca Chatfield went on Offsiders and briefly spoke about it. Because I think with the trade period, there is a little bit of concern, and this is coming off the back of the Commonwealth Games, is imports. We need to stop the imports. We need to stop them coming into SSN because look what's happening. We're not winning gold medals anymore.
Can I have my opinion on that?
Yep.
No. Everyone come in. All the imports. Everywhere. Come love all the imports. No restrictions on imports ever. We are the best league in the country. Bring all of everyone who's the best player. You come. That's my opinion on the imports.
Totally agree, because we are the world's best for a reason. And the reason I say yes to that is that I think we, Netball Australia, being the organisers and the governing body of SSN, we need to then look at how are we still making sure our own development pathway is really strong.
And there's ways to do that without putting a cap on the imports. Instead of going, oh my God, it's the imports. No, there's other ways that we can develop our own and develop World netball,
Yeah.
be the best league. There's ways around doing that without saying no.
Correct. And ways around that is commercializing A&L, our Australian
Yes.
Netball League. Put the money behind that. Like, there's no major sponsors. You didn't even have a trophy, I think, when you won it 2 years ago. Did you
No.
get it?
And there's like not finals or something. Like you finished on top, so you win.
We need to look at our pathways. We need to look at the development of it. There is one area that we can focus on and we're in control to continue to welcome the world's best athletes to our shore. It's a privilege to sit courtside and watch these athletes do their thing week in, week out. Like, how lucky are we that we get to do that?
I also think commercializing ANL comes with the best league at the top functioning well, getting bums on seats in stadiums, getting broadcast deals. You've got the best players in the world. How great is the tagline? We've got the best league in the world. We've got the best players in the best league in the world. Like, that's pretty rare. There's other leagues in Australia that don't have that. I mean, the AFL, yes, but they only operate in one country. So having that as a tagline, if the SSN is functioning how it is, where, you've got the best players in the world, that should only be able to strengthen our ability to commercialize ANL, but putting a real focus on ANL. Get a major sponsor, get people to invest. I'm not sitting on that side of the fence when it comes to how hard it is to commercialize, but we are still the number one participated sport in the country. I think making ANL a really solid league of its own is only going to strengthen what we do here in Australia.
Correct. Another thing that we can do, extend our squads. Let's have 12, not 10. So then it actually opens up another 2 spots that need to be to pathway players. So there's always going to be 2 youngsters within every team. Let's extend it to 12 and make sure those 2 of those spots have to be from pathways players potentially. Like, that might be something to consider. The third thing, and this goes back to what I was saying about Bianca Chatfield on Offsiders, is a point system. Now, she got crucified about saying it. Now, I can talk about this because I actually have a point system for my coaching. It does work. It works as long as it's done in the right manner. So I actually went through this year's SSN teams and gave each of their players a point or points according to where they would filter in the kind of like funnel of points.
When you're talking about that, you're saying like there's tiers. So there's obviously like an international player.
Yep. So 5 points would be an international player within the previous 2 years. 4 points would be an SSN team player, another international league. So whether you're from, England League or New Zealand League or South African
How many
states.
points is that?
3.
Perfect.
2 points would be a training partner or an Australian development player, and 1 point would be a state up-and-coming junior. Now, this is where it always gets interesting because that's where you start, right? But if you have changed clubs within the last 2 years, so you club hop, and an example of that is Romelda Aiken George, you get +1. So she would be 5, but she's 6 because she's been to another club or multiple clubs within the last couple of years. You want to have players to stay with you. You want that loyalty. +1 if you're from another state or territory. You could add that in potentially. -1 for every year that you stay at the club. So if you're a Shamira Sterling Humphrey, you're 5 coming in, but you've been at the club for like 4 years. She's 1 point now, like, because she's shown that loyalty to the club. If she then decided to go and play for the Swifts, she's 5 +1. She's 6. So then you've got to choose the value of what your international players. Do you need a mid-quarter? Do you need a shooter? Or do you need a defender? Like, where are you willing to spend your points?
But when you talk about international players, and I think this is where people got confused with maybe Bianca Chatfield, was this is also diamonds.
Yes.
This isn't just imports. This isn't just international players. This isn't just Latanya Wilson playing for the Adelaide Thunderbirds. This is Kira Austin playing for the Vixens.
Yeah.
So it's actually got nothing to do with imports. It's just getting competition balance across the teams with the caliber of players that they've got.
We don't want a team like Giants to have 1 win for the year. We want them to have multiple. So we want that talent to be dispersed. Now, when you look at that point system, you would be like, oh, well, Thunderbirds have got so many imports. But actually, the one thing that really goes in any club's favour, like the Adelaide Thunderbirds, if you are a pathway player, and this would be the same with the Vixens, if you're a pathway player, you're 1 point. You're worth 1 point to that state because you've come through the system. It's like at locals, if you've played juniors and you've come through the ranks and you've shown the loyalty to your club and you've played juniors, even if you've gone away and you come back, you're worth 1 point to the club.
So if I played at South Barwon Football Netball Club, shout out to them, I'd be worth 1 point.
You'd be worth 1 point. So, for instance, if I look at the Vixens, and the Vixens is a really good example because of Joe Weston, international player, 5, but she's a Victorian. She becomes 1 point. Kate Maloney, 5, international player, but she's a local pathway player, 1 point.
Wow.
The Thunderbirds, they have multiple international players, but then they've got 5 1-pointers. 5 out of their 10 are actually local young talent. The most expensive team is actually Fever. And that's because they've had like a Glasgow who is an international player, +1 because she came from Mavs, and a Romelda Aiken-George, she's 5. That's how a point system would work. Now, that is a mocked up one that I've created.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've gone to the extent to be like, okay, this is how it could work. And this is how you would explain maybe trying to find some competition balance in the SS.
Now, the way that also the points work at local level is if you win the premiership, you get 22 points to use, for instance. If you come second, you get 23, third, 24, fourth, 25.
Oh.
But then, like, the higher you finish,
So the Giants would get 30.
They might have 30 points to use, but the Thunderbirds might have 22 to use because of where they finished on the ladder.
Wow.
So, yeah. Now, I don't know how this goes with multi-year deals. Like, this is something that would have to come into that planning. But, you know, for instance, if you have 3 points to spare, we obviously can't afford someone else from another club because they won't fit into our point system. You know, you've obviously got your salary cap stuff, but your point system as well. That makes you have to look at your local state talent. That is where we can then give spots and time to our youngsters to bring them up. If we've invested in A&L, then they can come and be part of our elite program as well. That is where the strategy comes into then looking after our own. So the whole point of a point system is to spread the talent, to have competitive balance, but to also potentially look at your youngsters and be able to filter them through. And at a local level, it's all about making sure your juniors can come through the system because they're going to be so valuable to you because they're only 1 point.
And you know what I think about with this? Take imports. I'm going to not even use an example of an import in this, but let's talk about a Taylor Williams, right? So she's been at the Thunderbirds, been a part of what could become a dynasty. She's a South Australian-born athlete, right? So yes, obviously Taylor would probably want to stay at the Thunderbirds, but let's also say Taylor Williams now in her career wants to go and chase a little bit more court time because she can.
Yeah.
What I kind of love about this is that Taylor Williams has been a part of an environment that have played in finals year on year on year. She's got tastes of grand finals. So she would be worth more than, say, someone in the Swifts environment who's just come in and, you know, a Shani Lambden.
Yeah.
I just love the idea that, you know, those players who have the experience of grand finals year after year after year can then go and impart that experience and be the experienced head at other teams, but cost money, cost points. Obviously, there's a lot to flesh out with this, but I love the idea that experience does come with points.
Maybe even with those point system, that's where your salary cap can also come in. Like if you're a tier 1 player or you're a 5-pointer, you get so-and-so amount of salary because obviously we're capped. And then it can filter down on your tiers. Every club, there's always ways to earn more money. And that is to give back to the local community, to get immersed in local stuff and go do clinics and go do commercial opportunities and go do guest speaking. That's how you make your good money, by giving and investing back into the club, back into the area, back into the community, rather than you get paid heaps to be here for your netball, but because you're an international, you then piss off because you've got international duties, which is so fine, but you're getting paid 12 months and you're really only there maybe for 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So pay them for that 6 and 7 of what their value is. And if they want to do more, then maybe they stay around in Australia and give back more rather than going overseas because that's their time off and they can. You want them to get in and amongst the young girls that are aspiring to be Thunderbirds, Vixens, Swifts, Lightning.
And I've loved what the Sunshine Girls, they've been setting up clinics over here in Australia, really to make money for themselves, which we love, but also they're imparting their knowledge onto our young people, our
Yeah.
young Australian juniors,
It's what we
love that
want.
idea. Yeah, it is, because we want Shamira to tell some little puppet how to win ball. Of
Yeah.
course we do.
Of course you
But
do.
I think at the very core of it, whatever a point system looks like, I don't think there needs to be a cap on imports at
No.
all. And I think both you and I are saying that. But the spread of international talent, Diamonds, Sunshine Girls, New Zealand, England, Uganda, the spread of that across the competition, we need some competition balance in SSN. That's what I would like to see, because I agree with you. We don't want a Giants winning one game in the last round of the season.
So that is how a point system works. I would love to hear what people think of
Yeah.
it. It's annoying that players are off contract. And I know something like this isn't going to be brought in, but maybe this is how we continue to protect our own while still developing the world game, while still having a very entertaining product in SSN. World netball's as competitive as it's been, but young Australian talent still get a chance to have a go at what it's like to be at an elite level. And that is how I guess I would look at it and see it. I don't sit at those tables. I've got no understanding what all the restrictions are, but that's how it works.
And you know, the other thing that I will tack on to the end of that, and you and I have been saying this for a while now, this comes with financial impact, but I have always been for a squad of 16.
Yeah. 16?
You know, what it adds in the playing environment is more competition. You're not performing well and you're, you know, tier one player, but this player who's giving her all, the competition that happens within the elite sporting, the professional environment, the training environment, it really breeds strong competition. No one is set in stone, which I think what the 10-person strategy has maybe done. Like, once you're in the 10, there can be complacency, because what are people going to do? I love the idea of a 16-man squad. Financially, that obviously looks different for teams, but that breeds competition in-house. It breeds competition out of your club as well, because say you've been on a 16-person list and you've been developing in this training environment, which we know is where everyone develops. Like, you develop in training, not in the games. That's the experience, but the week in, week out standards that you are putting on the court. If you've got more Australian players in a squad, they're going to learn what the standards are like, and then they're going to move clubs, and then they're going to show that club what they know. I've always been for a 16-man squad, but I know that comes with financial implications as well. I think that point system, there's so many ways we can go to keep developing our own here in Australia, whilst also celebrating how bloody good the imports coming to Australia is.
I think after the Commonwealth Games that we've just had, I would expect more to potentially coming to our shores. So embrace it. I will. Well, you'd have to say so. I mean, New Zealand's league, it's so up in the air and unknown. I mean, they've opened it up and said we're welcome to any of our players exploring opportunity that's going to help them continue to be great players. I think some of the incredible talent that's been exposed, I reckon there's a few international players that have had a few phone calls, come across, let's go. So let's embrace it, but also have ways to be able to continue to protect our own, I think is really important.
Can I just also say, lastly, you speak about the word embracing it. I think there's a real point for Netball Australia here where there's two avenues they can take. They can feel threatened by the fact that World Netball is coming up and there's other teams that are competing for those gold medals. And for the first time ever in Com Games history, seen two teams that aren't the Diamonds competing for the gold. You can feel threatened. Or you can look at it, which I think that they will, and say, righto, this is a challenge. And this is what we are built for, because netball here in Australia is brilliant. And netball here in Australia, the coaches, the expertise, the wisdom we have is set up for this challenge.
Yeah.
Like, don't turn away from the challenge being there. Say, yep, no, we're built for this, and we welcome it. And you use the word embrace. And I just think I've got goosebumps. I'm so excited. I'm so invigorated with where netball is at. Love it.
So that wraps us up from locker room. I'm going to share one thing though with you. I've had a pretty big life-changing decision that I've had to make in the last week, and I'm going to share it with everyone on Friday. So just going
I'd love to pretend that I don't know what it is, but I do. You're like Taylor Swift with the Easter eggs, although like not really that stealth.
Stay tuned, guys. I'll fill you in on a little bit more, but we will be back. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts. We're open to feedback. We love your comments and being able to connect. We're super fans of our game, really. So we feel it just like everyone else. So keep sharing and we'll keep discussing our points as well.
And also very happy to be challenged. If you think that something doesn't make any sense, challenge us, because we're sitting here going, here's some ideas, here's what we think. But these are just ideas because, like you said, Maddie, we are fans like the rest. I did have someone comment, I can't remember where she commented, but she was like, can't wait to see the Brown sisters pick apart the Games and hear their opinions. So they are just opinions, loading of ideas, but always happy to be challenged in where we're sitting.
Because we just want netball to be great.
We do.
We do. See you soon.
Hello. Love you.